As campaign officially kicked off, the People's Democratic Party has formally inaugurated its 2023 Presidential Campaign Council, headed by Akwa Ibom State Governor Udomo Manuel. The party's national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, was represented by his deputy, Iliya Demogu, urging members to work diligently to ensure victory for the party. Leaders of the council are promising to work assiduously for the Atiku campaign and urge electoral body INEC to conduct free and fair elections in 2023. Atiku Abubakar tasked members of the Presidential Campaign Committee to intensify efforts to ensure that the party wins the next year's election. Arise correspondent Mary Chinda reports the inauguration of the Presidential Campaign Committee came on the heels of the public presentation of 3 books on the life of the presidential candidate.
And the People's Democratic Party says it is set to give other political parties a run for their money in the 2023 elections, while promising Nigerians good governance if its presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar is voted into power.
Today is not an ordinary day. And the inauguration of today of our Presidential Campaign Council is not an ordinary event. I wish to congratulate all the men and women nominated to serve in the Presidential Campaign Council. You have been selected from among the millions of our party members to join this esteemed council because of your past contributions to the party. Naturally, not all members of our party can be in the Presidential Campaign Council, but every single member of the PDP is an important member of the party, and each one of you is still entrusted with the responsibility of leading our party to victory in next year's elections.
Atiku, while condemning the All Progressives Congress-led federal government over the poor handling of the university lecturer strike, insecurity and unemployment, is promising a new lease of life if voted president. He also promises to rejig Nigeria's system of government, which he claims is outdated.
The current government has failed at the very essence of what makes a government: the security of lives and property of its citizens. Our economy is in shambles. Growth has stagnated, and our people are facing massive existential challenges daily and can barely make ends meet. Our nation is in disarray. The fabric of unity that binds our country is today being torn apart by mutual distrust. Our educational system is comatose.
The Campaign Council inauguration is coming alongside the launch of 3 books on the life of Atiku Abubakar put together by his aides.
That book will explain who Atiku and what he has done in the past. And I believe what he's going to do also in the future, especially in a situation we find ourselves that the country is down and needed a man with a huge experience to rescue it.
Other party loyalists describe Atiku Abubakar's candidacy as the best for Nigeria due to his experience, national acceptance, and his ability to attract investments to the country.
And I think the Nigerian public understands that the PDP is probably the best choice at this particular time for the nation.
We need an Atiku who understands what the metrics, what the problems are, and who has got the solution. He's got the solution, he's prepared, a man who has been prepared for 30 years.
The position of Rivers State people is Rivers State is predominantly PDP. Rivers State will give Atiku 80% victory.
INEC gave an indication that campaign will start today a long time ago. You could see that other political parties are nowhere to be found. We are telling Nigerians what we are bringing on board.
PDP is united. You see many governors, former ministers, former vice president, former senate president, former speakers, almost everybody is here.
And with the inauguration and members of the Presidential Campaign Committee out of the way, the PDP says it is not just poised to win the presidential elections, but to win across the 36 states of the Federation. Mary Chinda, Arise News.
Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the governing All Progressive Congress, Bola Tinubu, says he will take his campaign to every part of Nigeria. Speculations have intensified in the recent months over Tinubu's fiscal health ahead of the demanding campaign schedule. But in a statement on Wednesday, the former Lagos State Governor said his plans to take his presidential message every part of the country. Tinubu noted that the nation stands at a threshold of history, called on Nigerians to learn from the mistakes of the past. A federal high court sitting in Lagos has ordered the Labour Party and its supporters not to converge at the Lekki toll gate for their Obi Dati 23 Forward Ever rally billed to hold on October 1st, 2022. Justice Daniel Osiago, who made the order, did not stop the supporters from holding the rally in 4 other venues in Lagos. Rather, the judge directed the rally procession cannot stop or converge at the Lekki toll gate. He added that the procession can pass through the toll gates to access Falmouth Bridge and 4 other venues where the rally plans to meet. And the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, says Nigerians must seize the opportunity of the 2023 general elections to vote in persons who will turn around the nation's security and economic situation. Former Governor of Anambra State made the call in Jos, the Plateau State capital, at the unveiling of his candidacy by the Middlebelt Forum. Peter Obi has been speaking on his plans ahead of the presidential election. He was guest on Prime Time yesterday on Arise TV.
And for me, the number one thing is security. Security today is impacting on virtually all facets of the country. It's impacting the most, what I can call the most important area you need to deal with ordinarily, the economy. The economy is in a bad shape. But unless you solve your security, you can't live with that, because it's impacting heavily on that. It's impacting on your inflation, it's impacting on your ability to attract investments and everything. So that is the number one thing to deal with. Because if you deal with that, you can then start dealing with the other issues, which includes dealing with ensuring there's rule of law, under which you have corruption, law and order, bringing about a regulatory environment that can attract investment. And then you move on to other things, dealing with the issue of human capital, issue of some physical infrastructure like power and everything.
All right, let's talk about this one, Dr. Bati.
Okay, let's start with the last part of it. Mr. Peter Obi, who appeared on Prime Time on the station yesterday. Yesterday, we had made a point that the Labour Party had said that it will not, launch its own inauguration committee yet, but that a policy document will be released. But as it turned out, Mr. Peter Obi was at the Township Stadium in Jos, Plateau State, honoring an invitation that had been extended to him by the Middlebelt Forum. And according to the reports, as we have seen in the papers, it was received with, by a mammoth crowd, which must have been gratifying for him and his supporters. And he used the opportunity of that visit to Jos, Plateau State, to make a number of points, even before he appeared on Arise News Channel, to say that his priorities will include running an issue-based campaign that will be focused on fighting insecurity in the country, poverty, unemployment, the challenge of hunger, and that it will create jobs and also block leakages within the system and address the menace of corruption. But more importantly, he said that if he's given the chance to lead Nigeria, he would run a responsible government. So now that the campaigns have started, we're beginning to see a lot of activities within the political space. So that's Labour Party. Still on Labour Party, you recall that on September 12, 10 persons in Lagos had filed a motion on notice seeking a number of reliefs from the court, asking the court to prevent Mr. Peter Obi's supporters and the Labour Party from converging at the Lekki toll gate for a rally, which had been scheduled originally for October 1. But yesterday, the Court of Justice Daniel Osiago, giving an interim order, had said that, look, the protesters, yes, can pass through the Lekki toll gate on their way to Falomo or the environs, but that there should be no convergence at the Lekki toll gate. Well, what the court has done, simply, the Court of Justice Osiago, has simply upheld the right of persons, to associate, the right of persons to hold a rally or a procession. But in public interest, that order is trying to prevent, any breakdown of law and order against the background of what had happened at that same Lekki toll gate during the NSAS protest, which was one of the major reliefs being sought by the 10 persons who went to court, who served a motion on notice on September 12. However, that motion on notice has not been heard because all the parties involved have not yet been served. So the substantive matter is to be heard on, I think, November 4. But in the meantime, the court has said, yes, you have the right to hold a rally, but please do not converge at that particular point. The Court of Justice Osiago gave the additional directive that the police and the Lagos State Police Command in particular should ensure that that order is enforced. The subtext of it simply is that, yes, while people have the right to hold their rally, or to have a procession, or to associate, or to make their own choices, politically, as Nigerians will do as we move towards the general elections next year, they also have a responsibility to, defend the peace, to hold the peace, to ensure that their processions do not descend into chaos or anarchy. So I think that that point has been well made by the court. Now, to go very quickly to the PDP. Yes, yesterday the PDP was able to, inaugurate the Presidential Campaign Committee in Abuja. And as we have seen, that particular event is significant in terms of the content and also in terms of the presence and also the absences that were recorded. Noteworthy is the point that Governor Wike was not there. Governor Makinde of Oyo State was not there. Governor Tom of Benue State was not there. And also conspicuously absent was also Chief Olabode George. In other words, supporters of Governor Nyesom Wike, who have been arguing, who have been pushing for the removal of the party chairman in the interest of balance, equity, and justice within the party. Also absent was Senator Yochi Ayu, the chairman of the party. But I guess we shouldn't read, meanings into that. I think he's been abroad. So he's away on vacation abroad. And it was, represented by the deputy national chairman of the party, Ambassador Ilya Musa Damagum, who stood in for him and spoke at that occasion. So in terms of absence, that's it. In terms of presence, well, it was a well-attended event, and it was shown live on television. 3 books were launched. The first one is the book called The Story of Atiku Abubakar, written by our late former colleague, Onukaba Adinoyojo. That book was written in 2006. But I guess, they brought it up particularly to make a point, to sell the story of the candidate, as has been properly documented by Onukaba Adinoyojo, one of the few persons who got a PhD in performance theory in our field. Then second, there was another book, Landmark Constitutional Cases, documenting cases that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar himself had been involved in his quest for the presidency of Nigeria. And then, of course, the third book, talking about restructuring as a pathway forward for national development. So the PDP used the occasion, to make a statement that they are ready, they are prepared, but of course the choice is eventually up to the Nigerian people. And then, of course, Governor Okowa was there saying that, look, the presidency of Nigeria is not for persons who want to learn on the job. It's not for on-the-job trainees, that Nigerians should vote for tested hands, in other words, referring to his experience and the experience of his principal, Atiku Abubakar, who made it clear in his speech that his commitment is to rescue and to rebuild Nigeria. And in his speech, you could see the same, refrain recurring earlier in the statement by Mr. Peter Obi, saying that, look, Nigeria needs to be rescued. that there's a lot that is wrong with Nigeria. And I guess that many Nigerians will not argue with that. Then you are the chairman of the Presidential Campaign Council, Udom Emmanuel, governor of Akwa Ibom State, telling us that, well, the PDP is a solid rock and that doomsayers cannot move the rock. So generally, from Atiku to Koa to Udom Emmanuel to Tambuwal, who is the Director General of the Presidential Campaign Council, you had an expression of optimism, of confidence, of preparedness to take on this campaign. They're making a big capital out of the fact that it's only the PDP that has had this ceremony. But I guess the other political parties are being strategic. What would be the point? You know, launching your own Presidential Campaign Council or on the same day with the neighbor. You know, it's probably better to choose another day so that you can be the focus of news the morning after. Finally, the Tinubu camp issuing a statement saying that they would campaign in every part of the country. 8,000